how long have you been coaching, and what have you learned coaching through, the 11, the 12s, and the 13s?
Yeah, so gosh, I've been coaching a little over 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, youth soccer, and it seems like I learn something new every year. You
Wow.
you see the boys developing, year over year, that from a cognitive standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a maturity standpoint. So you're always learning and trying to adapt to the kids that you have on the team.
Yeah.
Every is a little bit different each year. So there's certain times you kind of have to adjust your style of coaching based on the players that you're dealing with. Some are a
Yeah.
little bit sensitive than others. Some
Yeah.
require a little more, attention and that kind of thing. But yeah, you learn a lot. You learn a lot every year. That's for sure.
Okay, so that's going to lead perfect to a transition. So I was interviewing a former MLS player almost a month ago. His name is Wells Thompson, and he talks about, you have to tailor your coaching to certain players. Some players are more sensitive. Like for Wells, for example, he said, hey, if you give me a pat on the back and tell me, hey, man, you got this, you can do this, I'm going to be more open to a coach's suggestions. But if you tell me, if you give them tough love or you go a little bit tougher on them and you yell, then you piss them off. But then on the other side, you have those players that they need tough love. How do you find that balance between not being, I guess, too sensitive to a player where they don't learn, and being, firm so they can actually take your suggestions as a coach?
I can tell you it is the absolute hardest part of coaching for me.
Wow. Okay.
It's been very, very eye-opening, especially with a club like FC Dallas that prides themselves on being like a community club. So
Yeah.
they welcome in, all players from all different types of personalities. And I am more of an old school coach. Like I said, I've been
Okay.
coaching for over 20 years, and it was definitely more of the tough love approach.
Mm.
When you're playing at the higher level, the expectations are greater, and the demand is a lot greater. We're playing competitive soccer, so the onus is, while it's on developing, it's also on trying to win, especially in playing in the competitive classic league. So it's definitely a balancing act. I can't tell you how many times that I've had parents and players want to go somewhere else because they think that I'm just too tough on their
Wow.
player.
Yeah.
Also had some kids come to my teams from other teams because they say, well, the coach just he was too soft, or he didn't say anything, and my kid needs more discipline. My kid
Yeah.
needs more somebody getting on him, because he won't listen to us as parents, but if you get on him, he'll listen to you as a coach. So it's a balancing act, and that's what I was saying. Every team is different. Every player is different. Sometimes it takes a period of time to identify who those players are. And,
Yeah.
I've lost some players in that
Wow.
regards. Players that want to go to different teams, because they think that the style is a little bit too much for them. And like I said, in return, I've also gotten some players. So, man, it's the toughest part of coaching for me, for sure.
Wow, that's first off, that's super eye-opening for me, because I think it depends as well as the parents. I think the parents play a major part into that.
Oh,
Like
sure.
like for example, my father he grew up in Honduras, El Salvador. That's where it's super tough. I mean, he grew up with a lot of adversity and failure, and he had to sell onions in order to get his feet. And he always told me at such a young age, he's like, son, Alex, he's like, the world is not gonna, it's gonna be brutal on you. I have to
Right.
prepare you. And so at a young age, at 8 years old, he began taking me to the orchards to start picking apples and say, maybe you're not going to end up picking apples your whole life, but the concept is still there, that you're going to have to be willing to do the uncomfortable stuff in order to get forward. And on the other side, you have my mother, who is more on the gentle side, is more of, hey, give him some time, give him some space. And my father's like, no, the faster he can learn this, well, the faster he's going to improve, and the faster he's going to get better on. And so now I just want to get into something that isn't talked about, is self-confidence. You need confidence in order to move, and not just as a player, as a person, but in your career and your relationships. How do you start creating and building self-confidence at such a young age as a coach?
Yeah, good question. Really and truly, a lot of it is what I try to do is I try to take my approach that perception is reality, right? If I have
Mm,
enough parents and kids that say, hey, you're tough on the boys or you're hard, and they either want to leave and go somewhere else that's a little bit softer or whatnot, or players come to me, like I said earlier, I kind of take that and I kind of mold it all into just my own little forte of coaching. And so since I know that my style can be a little bit more demanding, what I do is I let my players know early on, hey, like if you're not getting that from me, if I'm not being demanding, if I'm not pushing you to your absolute limits, you know, that means that I don't think that you're going to really amount to anything. Or, if I
mm,
didn't coach you hard, then it's probably because I wouldn't believe that you could actually do it. But the reason that
wow.
I push you, the reason that I coach you hard is because I see your potential. I see how good you can be. I see the level that you can play at. So it's my job to try to bring that out of you. You're a good player. You need to know that you're a good player. And it's my job to bring that out of you. So I think once you reinforce why you coach, why you have a certain style, it's to get the most out of the players because you see how really good they can be. You
Mm,
hope that framing it that way makes the kids want to try even harder or jump through
mhm.
hoops for you because coach sees something in me that maybe I don't even see in myself. And so that's
Yeah,
what I really try to push with these kids. And then when we are seeing success, I celebrate with them just like I scored the goal myself. Like it's
wow.
like for them to see my passion coaching because I want them to have that same passion when they play out on the field. Because
Yeah,
my philosophy has always been, your passion is everything. If you believe that you're going to succeed, then you absolutely will succeed. But you got to do it with. And so I coach that way to hope that the kids start to have some of that passion, and it helps them, with their career and helps give them a little bit more of a competitive advantage.
yeah, and that's something that for some reason, I guess society, coaching brings down is winning. For example, like for when I was playing, not back then, but because I got injured like 2 years ago, so I haven't been really playing that often. But my I had a coach, and he told me, have some be soft on this team, don't beat them by 7 8 goals. And I guess that reinforces into a kid's mind like, oh wow, we're only beating by 1 goal, we shouldn't beat them by that. But then there is the other time where it's like almost brought down to teach
Yeah.
how to win. And I don't know why. It's like if you're gonna beat a team by 8 9 goals as a player, I would think, who cares? I'm here to win, improve, and if the team can't play, well, something's going wrong on their part. But on our part, we're winning, so we're gonna continue to develop and grow.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And I what I always say and what I always tell parents is, if this is more about you just wanting your kid, to now at every level, the kids are kids. They need to enjoy soccer. Soccer needs
yeah,
to be fun. They still need to love the game. But
yeah,
if you're just more so concerned if Johnny is just getting to have fun and be with his friends and not so much about the competitive. They have leagues for that. They have
yeah,
leagues that the kids can play in for that. But with my teams and playing competitive soccer, select soccer, where the kids are under contract, and then in our case with my teams, we're playing in the Classic League, which is supposed to be the elite players across North Texas.
yeah,
We're trying to develop kids, but we're also trying to win. Like, let's make no mistake about it. And I don't ever want to sugarcoat that
yeah,
to my parents. Absolutely, we're trying to win. Now we're
yeah,
trying to develop in the process, but we're trying to play at such a level that the kids are developing. But we're not out there. Excuse my language for shits and giggles, but we're
yeah.
out there we're trying to win the game, and we're trying to win it convincingly. And what to me it does is if there's other teams that are wanting to play at the competitive level, hey, you have to know how to lose so you can also learn how to win. And that's just kind of how we are, and that's my approach.
I like that approach as well. Maybe because that's I think we're connecting here because that's where my father taught me. The first thing that my father always taught me was learn to lose. The
Yeah,
first thing he never taught me win, 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 win. Because you can get so
right.
you can win so much, but what happens when you lose?
Exactly.
My father
Exactly.
was like if you're gonna play soccer and you're gonna start crying when you lost, just don't play.
Right.
He's like, if you don't want to cry, go and play alone, play by yourself, don't do anything. But you have to learn how to lose because outside, not even soccer, let's say you're pursuing a career, or I like to look at soccer exactly like life.
Sure.
You get cut by a team, well, somewhere over there in the professional world, you're gonna get cut, and the reality is maybe that person was more prepared. He worked harder than you. He was just committed. Maybe that person, the CEO, saw something in them, right? Or in soccer, if you're coming against an obstacle, you can push forward. That can be, pushing down the line against the offense, or it can go back, find a different strategy, and play somewhere else.
Exactly.
Because when people
Absolutely.
say when people say soccer is life, I feel like are you saying it from a perspective of love or from like actual life, like
Right.
in that? And so that I think it gets miscommunicated. But still on the
Yeah.
topic of, yeah, for sure, still on the topic of self-confidence, what actionable steps can a young player take today in order to start getting that belief in themselves? For example, let's say they're playing with the team, a coach just doesn't see something in them. How do
Right.
they build their own self-confidence so it's from the bottom? Do they just commit to themselves? Do they keep their promises? Do they keep the word? Do they just show up? How do they build that confidence within themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I think a lot of it, parents can help shape a lot of that as
Mhm.
well. But, when we talk about self confidence, to me, it starts with the love. It starts with the
Mm,
passion for the game. So, kids these days, and I have three of my own. So, I'm speaking from experience. There's so many external factors and so many things that can keep the kids not as engaged on one particular area. For instance,
mhm.
there's so many different sports for youth, which I think is great. But then now we're in a social media world, right? And we're in a
Yeah.
technology world where there's games, there's Fortnite, there's Among Us, you name it. The
Yeah.
kids are playing it and doing it. Whereas when I was growing up, we didn't have all these things, and so
Yeah.
wanted to be good at soccer, I needed to be outside playing soccer tennis or juggling my soccer ball and doing those kind of things. Whereas the kids have so many other things that they can do. So for me, from that self confidence standpoint, what I always instill in my kids and just the way I think that kids can learn to develop it is they have to be true to themselves. And if they
Mm,
say that I want to be a professional soccer player, somebody along the way, because they definitely need help. Because again, these are kids, whether that be mom or dad, or whether that be a coach that's easy on them or hard on them, somebody has to be there to tell them, look, if you want this, and you're passionate about this, then you've got to put in the work.
yeah.
And I believe from that point, if somebody is diligent about putting in the work, whether that be soccer, whether it be basketball, whether it be just a self sport, golf, tennis, anything like that, if somebody's actually diligent about putting in the work, then they're going to build that self confidence.
Yeah.
And then once they build that some self confidence that they feel that, hey, look, I can do this, then it's going to take a coach or somebody in that arena to also help foster that growth and help foster development. And that's kind of where, as youth coaches, somebody that decides that they want to play club soccer, we kind of come in right at that cusp when they have said, hey, look, I've exhausted the recreational soccer, I think that I'm good enough. Or even maybe parents feel that they need a little bit more of a challenge. That's where we come in to say,
Mm,
okay, this is the path that I need to see you on. Or hey, you're great at this, but you lack this. You need to
yeah.
focus areas. Somebody that gives them just that unfiltered, raw, just honest feedback about
Yeah.
where they're at. And then if you have somebody that's willing to put in the work from that perspective, that's where that self-confidence builds. And then that's how the players develop and that's how they grow.
Yeah, and also because I think self-confidence comes from, you can't build it overnight, right? You can't,
No.
there is no magic formula to saying, you can commit for one day and you can keep all your promises and put in the work, but if you slack off the next day, then all the progress that you built the other day just goes back to zero. Right.
Yep.
Now you're back, and now you probably lost some confidence, but because in the back of your mind, you're like, oh crap, I can't even keep the promises to myself. I can't put in the work. I'm letting, let's say, Fortnite take over my soccer dreams. Then that causes, at least from my experience, causes a player to hide in games, not speak up, and knowing,
Yep.
crap, I'm gonna fail. And
It's so true. It's so true. It's funny because I experience it. I guess I'm, fortunate in some respects, and then other respects, you wish it was a little bit different. But I coach both of my kids in soccer, and it's funny because I was coaching youth soccer long before they were even born. And one of the reasons I started coaching with FC Dallas is because they started taking a special liking to it, and you can see these kids were, they excelled in it and started doing very, very well.
yeah.
My middle-aged son, he plays on a high level for FC Dallas, but
Mhm.
just as his coach and as his dad, one of the things that I noticed was after he had his 10th birthday and I got him a phone for his birthday. He got an iPhone 11, so now he had access to all these games and all of these things. Man, the time that he was spending out in the front yard juggling his soccer ball and all that stuff, I mean, just dramatically diminished. And
Wow.
it did not take 3 weeks to see how that reflected on the soccer field. He was no longer being as dominant as some of these other kids were, and a lot of it was because his time was taken away from it. He diverted from all of those practices and all of those repetition, and it doesn't take long at this
Yeah.
level. Because there's a lot of kids out there that, aside from the practices that we give them a week, they're doing other private lessons with coaches, any other thing that they can do to get the extra touches. So you can see how just something like that can really, really affect somebody that's not diligent and not driven and focused. It could definitely affect them. I see it with my own kid.
Yeah, it's something that you almost have to like protect and like protect it like if it was your own family member.
Sure,
Like
absolutely.
it's super important because it does diminish your performance, and then like that's how the doubt, fear, and worry start to come in because you didn't protect it. But now I guess here, how do you balance that though? There's self-confidence and then there's arrogance.
Sure, sure. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I would much more rather a player err on the side of arrogance as far as battling self-confidence. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because to me, I believe not only as a parent, but also as a coach, just as you teach how to win, or I'm sorry, just as you teach how to lose, you also teach how to win. You also teach how to walk with some humility, not to do things that are unsportsmanlike and those kind of things. If you win, yes, you're gonna try to beat the team and score whatever you score,
Yeah.
but certain way you do it. You don't go rub it in the team's face. You don't go
Mhm.
mocking and talking, smack to the other things. Like, so there's a way that you can teach humility
Mm.
and rein in some of that arrogance. But to me, I think that there's a certain part of arrogance that is synonymous with confidence. And any
Yeah.
coach would rather have a player that's confident in what they're doing, even if half the time that, they don't always know what they're doing, but they're confident every time that they take the
Yeah.
field. We can work so much better with that than somebody who's very tentative, lacking in self-confidence, lacking in assurance and those kind of things. It's harder to bring that out than it
Yeah.
is to rein somebody in that's showing a little bit of arrogance. And I always speak back to my own kids. My middle-aged son, when every single game he's scoring 2 and 3 goals, and everybody wants Kellen on their team, and practices when we do scrimmage. Oh, we want Kellen, we want Kellen,
Yeah. Yeah.
those kind of things. So he started to develop some of that himself. And I would always have to tell him, son, you have to be a little bit more humble about that, because you know what? You're not going to always be faster than everybody else.
Mhm.
These kids are going to catch up to you. You know, you need to be thankful of where you're at right now. Keep working hard, but you need to be humble about what you're doing. To
Yeah.
me, it's a lot easier to rein that in than to build somebody up that was already lacking in self-confidence.
Yeah, that's a very powerful point. And now I guess transitioning over to mental toughness, because you can go from being the top player at a lower team and then you just move up one or two levels and now you're benched. How
Exactly.
how do you have that mental strength and toughness to say, let's say I'm a young player and I'm playing for a lower team and I join the FC Dallas and I'm immediately benched.
Right.
How can I, as a young player, show the coaches or show myself that, hey, just because I came from a lower tier, I'm still that high quality player and I still
Right.
deserve a starting spot? What can a young player do in order to showcase that? Do they just work hard in practice? Do they lead? Do they communicate better? Do they have better
Right.
stamina? What is it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's all of those things. And
Okay.
really, I think that it's also um, being with a coach that will also provide honest feedback.
Mm,
I can't tell you how many times that this is, as much as I hate to admit it,
yeah.
coaching club soccer is also a business for a
Yes.
lot of these coaches, and they're looking at their numbers and having to
Yeah.
have certain amount of numbers on the team in order to make their payroll and those kind of things. It really starts with the coach that's going to provide honest feedback for the parent and the player as far as how they get to that level, and where they're a contributor, and getting playing the adequate playing time that they want. That's first things first. But secondly, is what I always try to do with some of my players is I always try to tell them things that they can work on their own. Because if they're just expecting to be at that level with just 2 practices for an hour and a half that they get with me, that's unrealistic. They're going to have to put in some work on their own, and then I give them some actual things that they can do, not just say, hey, you got to go work on your own. I tell them these are some things that you can do. Let me see you juggling your soccer ball more. Or, hey, I'll give them a list of 3 or 4 different skill moves that I want them to work on and try to
Yeah.
master those. So if I give them something tangible to work on, I think that also helps in their development, because there's one
Yeah.
thing that they can't do. You can't fool the coaches. I can tell if you've been working on it or not. And so then it's just having those honest conversations. If you tell somebody, these are the things that I need you to work on, but you see that they're not, putting in the work, then that's just a conversation that you have at that time. So it starts with just honest communication from the coach to the parent and to the kid. I had one of those conversations actually just earlier today with the dad regarding his son. So that's definitely where you start. And I think kids know, and if they put in the work, they can start to see when they're at practices and at training
Yeah.
how they're measuring up with some of the other kids that are out there. And it's our job as coaches within FC Dallas, since we have a lot of different teams within the same age group, uh, everybody who signs on with FC Dallas, and I wish all clubs were this way,
Yeah.
understand that we want to pair up players with teams of other, similar skill sets. Don't
Mm,
go put a kid fresh out of rec soccer on a D1 team. He is
yeah.
going to be sitting on the bench because he's not at the level. So one of the things that we try to do as coaches is we honestly try to put kids at a development level team where they belong, and that usually kind of takes care of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, because it brings back memories. 7 days ago, I interviewed one of the FC Academy coaches, Victor Medina. I'm not
Oh
sure
yeah, I know Victor very well.
if you're familiar, but he says, I think you can save a lot of problems with parents, players, and coaches. Just like you said, if you're upfront. Let's say
Yes.
a young player from the recreational side is wanting to play at a competitive level. Let's say FC Dallas. And he's going in, he's like, and Victor mentions, he's like, it's important to tell the parents what you expect up front. He's like,
Right.
this is how I run my coaching. I'm strict, I'm disciplined. We can have fun, but there is a fine line between them. Most of
Right.
the time we're going to be training. If you're not comfortable with that, well, then feel free to go. FC Dallas isn't your club. Go to somewhere else. But if you
Right.
are, I don't want you calling me after a game after we lost where the player is upset. I'm mad. The coach is mad. That's where the F bombs start coming in, and that's where right.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very important. But now transitioning into fear. How can a player overcome fear before a game? Do you just work with it, or do you just have to kind of embrace it?
It depends on the fear.
Yeah. Okay.
It depends on the fear. Um, there is a such thing called a healthy dose of fear
Hmm.
that even I had growing up as a player, and it's those butterflies that you get in the stomach right
Yeah.
before a game, and that little nervous anxiety that you get right before a game, but you're ready to go play the game, but you
Hmm.
just those nerves are just there. That's what I consider a healthy dose of fear. There's also the other fear where it's just like there's a kid that's petrified to go out on the field in fear
Yeah.
of messing up and in fear of not doing good. Um, and you have to quickly identify those and then assess whether that kid's at the right level first and foremost. That's usually always a measure that they're probably not playing at the level that they need to be playing at. And then it's having that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Where is their fear coming from? Where what is it derived from? So then you can see as a coach if there's maybe an area that you can help them. Hey, just relax, just breathe. Making sure that the player knows that you'll be in constant communication with them as far as what's going well, what's not going so well. Those kind of things that you hoping that they can overcome and play through. So if a player has a healthy dose of fear, I think that that's a good thing.
Mm.
But if a player is just fearful, and it's kind of a theme for them, I would then question if they're at the right level that they need
Okay.
to be at. And it's okay if they're not at the level. We just need to make sure that we're putting them at the right level to where, hey, maybe you do need more of a recreational, or maybe you do need something that's not as competitive. So you're feeling like I can just go out there and play and, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And that's where we start getting into the different levels within club soccer, because even of the same age group, there's still different levels as far as, the teams and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because that healthy dose from fear, there is that fear when you're walking towards the pitch, you're putting on your shoes, you're soft, and you're like, oh crap. But as soon as the game starts, it goes away. You're
Yeah.
in game mode, you're locked in. That's the healthy dose of fear.
Right.
A lot of memories. But then the other fear is like the fear continues when you're in the game.
Right.
Now you're
Right.
like, oh crap, the guy, they call your name across the field, they're like, Alex, and then they pass you the ball, and you're like, oh crap, what
Yeah. Yeah. Afraid to make a mistake. You
yes.
freeze. Yeah. Those kind of things.
And
Yeah.
95, 100% of the time you do. And that's what causes coaches to be like, yeah, this guy,
Yeah.
he's scared. Let's put him out. Let's get another player. And then that's actually how other players can build themselves. Move into a coaching is, it's not a great idea to wish, another player, hey, be scared. Hopefully he makes a mistake. But from what
Right.
I've seen, that's how some players can build and get their opportunity that they've wanted is
Right.
someone else's mistakes, unfortunately. But
And then what I always do, because you're spot on there, is what I always do is not in a way to point out somebody
mhm,
else's mistakes, but on the pitch when somebody is out there, and then the players that are on the bench waiting to go in, I'll make a point to say, hey, you see what he's doing or what he's not
mhm,
doing, or is he in the right position? And you make the players evaluate what's going out on the field, so when they do get their opportunities, hopefully they go in and do it different than how so and so is doing it. That's also that's just that kind of the on the job on-the-job training, if you will, that like spot coaching situationally that you can see where when somebody's not performing or not doing what they need to be doing, you can point it out. Or a reverse, when somebody is doing what they're doing, and hey, when you go in the game, I want you to play and I want your game to look exactly like how such and such was doing it because
Yeah.
they were doing it the right way. So you can do it both ways. And to me, that's, that's just coaching. But it's fear is a real thing,
Hmm.
especially when you're dealing with with youth soccer players. As a coach, you try to have that balance with being accountability, and then also giving a kid self-confidence.
Yeah.
And but it's at the end of the day, what I've always gathered is that's why there's some players that can play at this level, and then other players that don't belong playing at this level, and it's just up to us to find out where where those players belong playing.
Yeah, for sure. So just a couple more questions before we end it here. I think a
Sure.
topic I think that you've never been asked, I think I could be wrong, is courage. Having the courage to actually pursue playing professional. Because I have a friend who has another friend who's very, very great at soccer, like a phenomenal player. He got offered to play in the Chivas development, the academy
Okay.
here in Mexico. But as before he was leaving, he took a step back and was afraid to leave his family, afraid to leave everything.
Mm,
And that's when I realized, how do you have the courage? Because most coaches, most players, scouts, you name it, talk about work hard, discipline, having the self-confidence, playing with fear. But they never talk about how do you actually just go for it? Because you need to go for
right.
it. You're gonna need
Yeah.
to sacrifice. How do you put that in perspective and say, crap, I'm gonna have to sacrifice something in order to make it?
Yeah, that's that's a good question, and that's a tough question, and that's
Hmm.
I think that's part of the reason why it's a small percentage of the
Yeah.
ones that do make it, because not everybody is afraid to step out and take that. Really, what you're talking about is a leap of faith,
Yeah.
a leap of faith, and their abilities, a leap of faith, and all the training and preparation that they put into it, and then it's just like, hey, I've worked hard for this, I've got to go for it, and that's not always easy, and that's why it's some that do and some that don't. But I'll say this from a coaching perspective. When I do get kids that are on the older level and they're ready to try to take that leap of faith and go for it, is you just remind them, this is what all those hours of training were for.
Mhm.
This is what all the blood, sweat, and tears was for you to maximize this moment that's
Yeah.
right in front of you right now. And you need to maximize this moment in front that's right in front of you right now, is because, for one, we never know what tomorrow holds, and you don't
Mhm.
ever know if you get this opportunity again. So
Yeah.
we as coaches, when we send players to showcase tournaments and all those other kinds of things, it's hey, you leave it all out there, and it encourages a huge part of that, because they don't ever know if they're going to get that opportunity again. So but again, that's easier said than done, I know,
Yes.
but that's why it's also a small percentage of those that go on to make it, and others that don't. But when you say the word making it,
Mm.
everybody defines what making it is very
Yes.
different. So
Yes.
it's also understanding what success looks like to that
Mhm.
individual as well. And as a coach, it's my job to try to put them in the best position to get to whatever level of success that is. Hey, for some of these kids, it's just to play select
Yeah.
soccer and then be done with it. Others, it's to play high school. They really want to make sure that they make their high school. For others, it's to go to college. For others, it's to go to the pros. Everybody has some track that they're trying to get to, and we're just kind of the stepping stone to help them get to there. But
Yeah.
courage plays a big part of that for sure.
Yeah, courage and that leap of faith. From the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm not sure if you've ever read that book, Think and Grow Rich, but it talks about some of the key characteristics. Now, this isn't soccer, but it's the concepts still apply. It's how some of 500 people make over $100 million, the characteristic that they have to build successful companies. And they talk about having a faith, having
Right.
faith in that it's possible, having that belief. He's like, because once
Right.
you have that faith, your mind, for some reason, it starts working in odd patterns. You just
Right.
start creating ideas. You start getting ideas of, oh crap, this is what I can do. This is what I should
Right.
do. New possibilities start opening. And then
Right. Right.
the other one is having courage. Courage, having the, and courage can be cured by just putting yourself in the face of rejection. That's just,
Right.
you can fear by just having courage. Until,
Absolutely.
like, we see it with in the army, the Marines. The reason why I believe
Yeah.
some of them don't have or little to no fear is because they've been in war.
Yeah,
They've
for sure.
overcome it, and so they have little to no fear. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
That fear of failure is a real thing, and I think you had said it earlier. A lot of that are life lessons that
Mhm.
you kids are shaping up to. And I've always been, like I said, an old school approach, and I've always been under the firm believer is just parents have to get used to somebody being tough on their kids,
Yeah.
because the real world doesn't apologize, and the
Mhm.
real world will leave you behind.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with self-confidence and courage and all those kind of things in the real world, somebody needs to tell some of these kids the truth. The real world is no one pats you on the back and
Mhm.
feels sorry for you. You just get left behind. And so
Yeah.
I think that as coaches, we have the ability and the platform to mold these kids at a very, very early age, that no,
Yeah.
nothing in life is just handed to you. That means
Yeah.
playing time. That means you've got to go out and earn it. And I think if you're allowed to instill that in players, that also helps build up that self-esteem and that courage, because hey, you've been hearing that from a very, very early age. So then
Mhm.
it's just like, hey, I am going to do it. I'm going to take this leap of faith, and I'm going to jump out, and I'm going to do it. What's the worst that can happen to me? I've
Yeah.
already been put through the fire, so to speak, through my
Mhm.
coaches and pushing me hard and doing all those other kinds of things. So at that point, you're not afraid to step out and have courage. And that's what I've always believed. And
Yeah.
that's why I don't try to deviate too much from my style, is
Yeah.
because I think if I was passive, and people were passive on me growing up, there's no telling where I would be at. I wouldn't have the
Yeah.
work ethic and the desire to keep pushing past limits, that when people say no, you can't do it, no, BS, I am going to do it. And
Yes.
for me,
Exactly.
that starts at an early age, for sure.
Definitely. So two more questions here. Um, as a coach, what do you focus more on, player development or building a team culture?
It's more player development.
Okay.
For me, it's definitely more player development. I think if you develop the player, then the team culture is going to come. The other thing
Mhm.
that I also know, especially with a club like FC Dallas, there's so many different teams within each age group. Players are going to come and go. It's hard to keep a consistent group of kids for year after year after year. Just the dynamics of our club have it to where, hey, look, if Johnny didn't like this one as much, cool, go to this one. If this team
Mhm.
didn't win as much, or Johnny's friends aren't over here, they're over here, go to this one. Unfortunately, that's I think the parents have a lot to do with that too, but
Yeah.
kids as well. So it's always going to be to focus on player development, and I believe if you develop the player, then your team is going to develop also.
Awesome. So final question here. From your experience as 20 years as coaching, from what you've seen, what are the three things that separates the young players, the top players who actually go far, who make it farther than others, and some who become a professional? Three things.
Yeah, I would definitely say the drive and
Okay.
ambition. Okay, I would probably say the realistic expectations, whether that be from parents and from coaches. And then I would also say that there has to be, there has to be uh, the work ethic. You have to
Okay.
put in the work. You have to put in the work. You have
Yeah.
to have the drive first. You have to have some realistic expectations, and then you have to have the work ethic. I think
Okay.
if you have those three things, then, you can set yourself up for success.
Awesome. So drive and ambition, have the realistic expectation, and then tremendous work ethic.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, first off, I just want to thank you again, Tony. I try to keep this interview below 40 minutes just to not take some of your time. You probably have to go. You probably have another training session or something, another tournament. I do want to thank you, man, for sure.
Hey, of course. Hey, it was fun. I appreciate it.
All righty, Tony. Take care.
Hey, have a good one.